was looking back at some of the things, the words that God has brought us, I was amazed at how much God actually prepared us for the things that were to come. And we, whether we've seen it or not, but looking back, hindsight's always 20/20. But looking back at it, it amazes me because let me just tell you, God's timing is perfect. We don't always understand everything. But we started out the year, Brother Tom delivered an incredible message, and it was just great because he was talking about, are you thirsty? And in this message, he started to, he told us a story about him and his cousin that run up on a deer. And they thought, man, hey, you know what? I'm going to go chase this deer. So they both took off after the deer. And of course, Tom was a little less in shape than his cousin. So about half a mile down the road, he's out of breath, doubled over. So his cousin just keeps on running after this doe, and they just keep running and running and running. So finally he gets his breath and he takes off running again. He meets up with his cousin. When he finally catches up with his cousin is doubled over and out of breath. He looks up and they see the deer about 100 yards away, man, legs just splayed out and just panting, ready for some water. And so he began to open the message about how as the deer panteth after water. Man, so my soul longs after you. Now, here's the thing for us. A lot of times we have a tendency, instead of looking for God in the things that we're going through, all of our life situations, we're not looking at God, we're looking at the situations. We're not longing after Him, we're longing after what He can do for us. And that's where we lose focus sometimes. So, in 2018, has anybody in this place lost focus? The question is, are you still thirsty? In February, John Tesh brought us a great message, and man, the thing that really stuck out to me with John Tesh was candy. Don't judge me, okay? But he came and he told us a story about this candy throw that they do in this neighborhood. They come out literally thousands and thousands of pieces of candy. The kids know it's coming. They prepare for it. They will run out there with their daddy's shirts on. It's like a size 3X. Again, don't judge me. They'll run out there with their daddy's shirt on, or big pockets, or jackets. It's summertime. They have jackets on. They're coming out. They're pulling their shirts up so they can catch as much candy as they possibly can. They throw this candy out, and their kids come from everywhere. They're running. They're sliding. They got their grass stains on their knees. Whatever it takes to get that candy, and they load up. But then there's also, right after that, another group of kids. They come along and say, I didn't get no candy. They didn't get any candy. They don't have any grass stains. They don't have anything to put the candy in, and they didn't run after the candy. So the two groups of people that started out, there's one that just really started out running after the candy, and then some that didn't. So can I ask you, in February, which one were you? Did anybody just, at some point, 2018, stop running after the candy? More importantly, are you still thirsty? We also got into, like, your eyes, abilities, and bulges, where we talk about, Pastor brought the message about, this is every year. You can go to the gym. So I got my gym membership at Planet Fitness because they have pizza day. But when you ask people what they can change, what would you change? What would you change that would change? Most people would say something on their outward appearance. I would much rather look, I'm the same every way. I would just like to be slimmer one way. Honestly, I don't want to be skinny. I just want to lose enough weight to where I don't jiggle when I brush my teeth. You've been there, huh? Oh my goodness. So if you could change one thing, what would it be? Would it be what you look like on the outside? Would it be what you're doing? Would it be how much you chase after God? Are you still thirsty? He also preached a message about they're coming. The people are coming. There are people all over the place that need to be reached. We have to be the people that feed them. And we're talking about the people when Jesus fed the 5,000. Even the church themselves says it's just impossible to do what you got right now with what you have. But are you bringing what you have? Did you bring it into 2018? So then in March, we started out the story where Pastor Steve brought in as well the fighting like a girl. He tells a story about a kid on the schoolyard. It didn't matter. They were getting beat up, but they bit the person. So then the whole time in school, they got the whole fight like a girl. For me, that symbolizes winning at all cost. Don't judge me. If you hit me, I'm going to bite you. He also talked about balancing the pH, preparing the soil for what we have, for what God has in store. Now, keep in mind, God sees the end of 2018 from the beginning of 2018. We have no idea. We began a couple years ago. Pastor Steve was talking about going into Smithville. And that was a big undertaking, but it's been years in the making. It wasn't something that just popped up. And so God starts these things in motion. We don't see the motion. We don't see everything that's going on and what's going to happen, but God does. And so he actually starts preparing us in his word. It's amazing if you go back and look at how much he was doing. And the word then was balancing the pH, preparing the soil. And the one thing about the soil or the harvest, the one nugget in all of that for me was there's always something fighting against the harvest. Always some kind of parasite, weather. There's everything in the world that's trying to kill that crop. It's up to us to prepare for it. So God began to prepare us for the year ahead. So then just a little bit more. Is there anybody in 2018 that failed to prepare like they should have for 2018? Anybody? That's okay though. Are you still thirsty? In April, it's starting to get real, people. In April, we don't realize what's coming up, but it's starting to get real. And the next message in line was nails and tattoos. It's, are you in it for the long haul? Or are you in it for when it looks good? Because with nails, now we have several nail techs in here that can do a great job. And listen, all these ladies come out with the best looking nails, and you're all about those nails. Man, they come out as soon as they get out of the shop. They start taking pictures of it. Most time, not even get out of the shop. Taking pictures of it, posting it. Look how good they look. Nobody ever posts a picture 2 weeks later when the nail's grown out and the cuticles, you can see that much of it. Do they? No, so we're all about the temporary. Everybody, they're all in it during the temporary. When things look good and everything's good, but man, it's about to get tough. I'm telling you, God is telling us right here, it's about to get tough. We can go in, we can get our touch-ups. I say we, don't judge me. Oh my goodness. And then tattoos. Tattoos are in it for the long haul, ain't they? You take a picture of a tattoo. I'm telling my daughter because she's not here and not close enough to hit me. She, when she was 18, she thought it'd be the coolest thing in the world just to go get a tattoo of a stiletto on her stomach and says fearless on it. Then she had a baby. Now it looks like a pump and it says, Fierce. The shoe looks drunk. Like it's, oh man. But you know what? She was in it for the long haul, man. Can I tell you something? Man, at Christ Point, our tattoo, we had a baby, okay? No secret, we had a baby. And it's, man, it stretched us. And it's changed some things. My question to you, though, are you still thirsty? The very next message, moving into, was don't violate the plan. Jesus' ministry was about to blow up huge. And the devil tried to separate and pull and tempt him. But he says, you know, my time's not full. That's said several times in the Bible, and the God starts to deal with me about my time is not yet full. Like at any moment, he can do whatever he wants. He's the Son of God. He can do anything he wants, but his time's not full. He's not slacking his promises. So things right now just don't look too good. It's a little shaky for us right in the middle of the year. It's a little shaky for you in your life between the promises. Like I know that I have some promises of God, but I don't see it yet. But the time's not full yet. Don't violate the plan. We moved into May. Who's changing the bucket? I like this just because it's so practical. Pastor opened up with a story about this man who fixed the roof. It did great for a long time. Then it starts leaking again. They can't find out where the leak's coming from, so they remember the guy who has actually fixed the roof. And so they call him and say, hey man, listen, we're having this problem. We can't find the leak. We're just calling to see if you remember where the leak was. And he says, oh yeah, that's no problem. He said, if you look under the stairwell, there's a door underneath the stairwell. It's like a hidden door that goes up to the attic. He said, oh yeah, I see that. And so he says, well, you just going up in there. She goes up there. He said, you see that bucket? He says, yeah, there's a bucket. I see his bucket. He said, the bucket's probably full. You need to dump it out. So the question was, who's changing your bucket? See, everything was looking real good. Everything's going real smooth, not just for Christ Point now, but for you in your own personal life about the middle of the year, because it happened to us as a whole. Folks, I don't know if you noticed that, but you look around, everything that happened going into Smithville didn't just happen to Christ Point Church. It happened to you in your personal life because you did the same thing that a lot of us have done, and that's trying to get, you're looking at the promises, we're looking at the great things, and man, all of a sudden, it's not happening as fast as we want everything to happen, and so we start focusing on the glass rather than the picture. So the question is, did anybody in 2018 stop focusing on the glass? Or stop focusing on the picture, the bucket? Anybody? Start focusing on the mess rather than the repair. Folks, as we got into that message, you went into how Achan messed things up for the children of Israel, and he decided he's going to start keeping stuff whenever God said destroy everything. And he messing things up for everyone. You got to be careful who's changing your bucket. Be careful the people you put around you. We moved into Mother's Day, and Pastor Tina just had a great message about making the most of our moments. Making Opportunities Matter is what it was called. And it was basically a Lord, whatever you have for me. And one thing I really liked about the message was the stages of, she used the term stages of motherhood. It was also the stages of where we were and where we were going. And she didn't even realize, I'm sure at that time, where she was, how prophetic even the end of this year was going to be when she talked about the stages. There's a stage of realization where you realize that you're pregnant. We birthed something inside of us. God birthed something inside of us. There's something, and it's just going to be a lot of work. We knew looking at, we're going in, and this is not just Smithville. I'm talking about you in your personal life. Something in 2018 was birthed in you. And you start to think about, man, this is exciting. I'm ready to go. Let's get it. And then there's the next stage. It was a stage of toddler. When everything's just, I mean, you got to baby some things along. They don't tend to listen real well. And even if you're a grandparent, man, you sometimes just want to pinch their little head off. Don't judge me. Then there was a stage of teen where other people seem to know more than what you do about something that you birthed. And usually it's that teen. And so as you start to move forward into things that God has promised you, it doesn't seem like it's going right because you're not in control anymore. You can't just treat it like a toddler. There's some coaching that comes along and some growing for you just as much as the teen. And then there's the young adult stage where, hey, they're finally on their feet. You were finally at some point on your feet. The things that you were reaching for, it was in your grasp. And then there's the adult stage, where it's kind of like, man, I just wish you'd come visit me every once in a while. The relationship that was so strong before, I still love you. I just feel like the relationship is so strained. There are people in your life today that for you in 2018, everything was going well in the beginning of it in your relationship with them, and just somehow in 2018, as through the course of the year, that you just kind of become separated. You long for the relationships that we've had earlier that just don't seem to be there anymore. But they're there. We just got to get on them and cultivate them. And then he started talking about poles, bait, and tackle. Whew. So now we start getting into the nuts and bolts. Just before we really take off here, we start talking about why in the world are we going to Smithville? Somebody may be asking you if God's given you a promise of something in your life. It could be a ministry birthed in you. It could be whatever you got going on that God has promised you. And you just have to climb over some rocks to get it because again, the story of just going to some places that nobody else has already fished out. You can fish right there on the main channel where everyone else is, or you can climb a whole lot of rocks, walk down some trails, go up and down through some rough places to fish out some places that other people haven't already fished out to get to be to. And so in our lives, we have a tendency to want to fish the mainstream like everybody else, but when God calls you to somewhere that is just not the same, it's a little more difficult. The trails, listen, I know all about rough trails and dodging them. But that's the places that God called us to go. Nobody's feeding those fish in the hard-to-reach places. God called us to reach those fish in the hard-to-reach places. There are people in your life as well that God has called you to reach that are in some hard-to-reach places. So my question to you is, have you dodged the rough trails in 2018? Anybody? Even more importantly, are you still thirsty? We got into June. And we talk about putting on the dog. Sometimes things don't end up the way that you expected them to, or the way you had planned on them ending up. So there was a man who had a wife who wanted a fur coat. This man could not afford a fur coat. And then one day on his way home about 11 o'clock at night, a fur coat just run right out in front of him. So he takes this thing home a couple weeks, and he just works it and cures it and does whatever he has to do. And so finally he gets this lady her fur coat. So whenever she goes out, they coined the term putting on the dog. That's her coat. Sometimes in life, folks, we're going to come up on some mess. It's not going to be the way that we expected things to happen, but we're going to get to the end that God has for us. And you're going to get to the end that God has for you if you just keep focusing on the picture and not on the glass and not how everything's going in those levels right there. Just right in front of you. Remember, God sees the end from the beginning. We got into Father's Day. We talked about up the middle ministry. When you take off an up the middle ministry, as I go through these, I'm amazed because I know the timelines, and I was privy to some of the behind the scenes stuff, and so I see how God was setting us up for these things the whole time. It's amazing to me. But we talk about up the middle ministry. When you watch football, because listen, this is Tennessee. We all watch football. We live for football, love football. Here's the thing, up the middle football is not very fun. It's not real pretty. It gets pretty rough sometimes, and you be sitting there watching a game, and it's the second quarter, and they've not been able to run the ball for 2 quarters, and they're still running that ball up the middle. Why in the world? And you be mad. I'll be yelling at the TV. Why are you running up the middle? You ain't done it in the whole 2 quarters, 30 minutes. You ain't done nothing with it. You're still going to run it right up the middle. But fortunately for that team, that coach knows a little bit more than I do. Because we've all been watching our whole life. We know that in the third and fourth quarter, that once you start wearing that other team down, you can run some stuff up the middle. Not only do you run stuff up the middle, but it sets up the long stuff on the end. The scores, the big plays, and it's real pretty, third and fourth quarter. It's real tough, first and second quarter. Nevertheless, we're called to up the middle ministry. So in June, God starts to call us up the middle ministry, and we start thinking, man, this is looking good, but man, it's starting to get a little tough. We thought we was just going to take off with the ball, like we was just going to run 20, 30 yards at a time, but it's not working out that way. Some things are getting a little crazy. Anybody in here abandon their up the middle strategy in 2018? Anyone? My question to you is, are you still thirsty? We got into July, and how appropriate. Golly. The day the rains came. Just happened to be around Independence Day, so we're going to have this message about how the British were coming in. They were bombing, and they had the fire on the end of their bombs, and it was just really bombing Baltimore. And if they bombed them for 25 hours straight, and if they could just keep doing like they're doing, and then they could just wipe everything out. But then the rains came. The torrential rains, the torrential downpours that God just sent flooded on a place that looks bad, y'all. You imagine 25 hours solid of fire bombs coming at you. Could you imagine how bad that looks? They're still burning somewhat while God's pouring the rain. So, in 2018, every person in here, just about most people that I talk to, have had some fire bombs dropped on their life. 2018 has been a rough year for a lot of people. Has anybody in here had some rough times, some fire bombs? Anybody fire bombs in 2018? Are you still thirsty? Then Drew comes in, great message. He talks about being stuck. Man, how awesome is it that where we are as a church, where I was personally as a person, stuck. Peter's in a prison. He's locked down tight. Basically, listen, this is Herod. He's getting ready to kill him. He can't do it during the fest and the festivities and things that are going on. But so he has to wait. And so he says, hey, put him in the prison. Make sure he doesn't go anywhere. So he locks him down tight. Peter's locked down tight. The thing that Herod didn't think about was Herod knew that Herod could keep Peter in the prison, but he didn't realize that he can't keep God out of the prison. And so God moves, the angel shows up. The angel shows up with Peter and literally hits him. Says, hey, man, you got to get up. Peter's thinking, man, this has got to be a vision. There's no way this is possible. But it is, because even in the middle of our mess in 2018, God just shows up. So even though you feel like you were in a prison, or you may still feel there right now, but I'm here to tell you that the devil might try to keep you in a situation. You may feel like you're stuck in a situation. And right now you may very well be stuck in a situation. And the devil is that for whatever reason, you're in a position and he's allowed to keep you there for now, but he can't keep God out of it with you. So you don't have to go through what you're going through all by yourself. Here's the thing that you do have to do, because this is an angel that comes in and he's setting everything free. He's breaking chains. He's opening doors. Everything that could happen. But he tells Peter this one thing. He says, put your shoes on. Now, why would an angel come in and take care of everything? Open all the prison doors. He breaks all the chains. He does everything that he can. He can do anything else. But he makes Peter put his own shoes on. There's a part that you have to do yourself. He can come in and set everything free. He can set you free, but you have a part to play, and it's putting your shoes on to get unstuck. If you expect God to do what God can do, you have to do what you can do. And
hey guys, you were doing this and you stopped on us and you watched us, and I appreciate it. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for spending some time with us. I pray that you enjoyed the service today. Let me take this opportunity to invite you out personally. We're located on the square in Sparta. Our service times are at 9 and 11 every Sunday morning. We'll meet you at the door with a hug. We'll meet you at the door with some coffee ready and some donuts if you want. And let me just take a real quick minute to invite you over to our Smithville campus. For those of you who can't drive over to Sparta, drive over to Smithville, 11 o'clock for now, at 614 Murphy Street in Smithville, Tennessee. So one of our campuses, Christ Point Church, we're real people, we're living real lives, and we're serving a real God. Welcome home.